What is going on, guys? Hello, and welcome back to another edition of the GoingFor2.com NFL Sports Betting Show. The NFL season is just 2 weeks away. Of course, we here at the show could not be happier. So excited to get the NFL season kicked off. We've had baseball for like the last 3 months. That's all we've gotten to watch. So it's about time for some football. So of course, we've broken down all 32 teams here on this podcast, took guesses at their over-under win totals. So now, before the season starts, of course, futures are always a part of betting. So we're going to be talking futures bets here on this podcast today. So we're going to be looking at Coach of the Year, Defensive Rookie of the Year, Offensive Rookie of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, and then we'll end with our picks for who's going to win MVP in the 2018-19 NFL season. So with me today is futures expert Joe Marsh. Joe, how's it going tonight, man?
I'm doing pretty good. How about you?
Not too bad, man. Not too bad. Football just 2 weeks away from the Thursday night game. I'm just super excited. So, again, super excited to have you on the podcast. We've been trying to get you on for a while now. But I think this is like the perfect podcast for you because you, of course, all the time you send me your prop bets, your futures, and you really hit them on the head most of the time. So, really excited to have you on.
Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah. So my approach when I'm doing this, I'm not always necessarily trying to hit them on the head. Usually, I'm looking for lines that are mispriced.
Absolutely.
So. And I don't do a lot of, even money because I don't want to have, wait 4 months for my money to double. Usually I'm looking at something that's where I can get a 10-1 or a 20-1 or something like that. So a lot of times really, my bet will be, maybe I'll have a 20-1 or 30-1 and people will be like, oh, that's a crazy bet. And it's not that I necessarily think it's going to win. I just think that it's mispriced, that it should be 10-1. And that's really all I'm betting on. Last year I had Ben Roethlisberger to win the passing yards title at 30-1. And I looked at that and I was like, dude, that's insane. He's got to be one of the top 3 or 4 guys, right?
For sure.
And he ended up barely losing out to Tom Brady because he sat week 17. He would have had a shot at it. But, yeah, a lot of people just look at that and they're like, dude, that's a crazy bet. And I'm like, it's still only maybe a 10% chance. But if it pays out 30-1, those are the kind of edges that I'm looking for.
Without question. There are a ton we're going to go over, especially in the MVP odds that have my head scratching a little bit. And so I like you. I like those 30 to 40 to 50. I mean, last year Carson Wentz was 60-1 to win MVP. If he hadn't gotten hurt, he would have won it. So I love bets like that. And it's just
I took Jameis last year at 60-1, and then I regretted that by week 3.
For sure, for sure. I wonder what he's at this year. We'll go over it when we talk MVP. But as always, we have a lot to cover here, so we're gonna jump right into it. But before we get started, if you like any of the bets that you hear on this pod, there are future bets on MyBookie, and luckily for you guys, we do have a promo code with them. Promo code VERTEX on mybookie.ag and xbet.ag. You're getting $50 free for both sites, $100 free. So $100. I mean, I would definitely throw a couple hundreds on some long shot bets, like you said, Big Ben, Jameis. You never know; it could turn into $5,000, $6,000. So we're gonna start in. We're going to sort of do most boring awards to then the MVP at the end. So we're going to do Coach of the Year to start. So you ready, Joe?
I'm ready to go.
Let's do it. So going to break it down. We have the top 20 odds right now. Coach of the Year. Of course, we're going to be doing the favorites first, then of course the random long shots later. We'll be talking about some sleepers that we like. Then at the end, gun to your head. Who do you think is going to win this award, no matter the odds, no matter everything? So, Coach of the Year odds for the 2018-19 season. Coming in as the favorite, Doug Peterson at plus 1,000. We got last year's winner, Sean McVay, at 1,200. Anthony Lynn of the Chargers, plus 1,300. Bill Belichick and Pat Shurmur plus 1,300. Mike Zimmer and Kyle Shanahan at plus 1,400. John Gruden plus 1,500. That one makes me laugh right off the bat. Bill O'Brien plus 1,600. Andy Reid plus 1,600. Five guys coming in at plus 1,800 of Doug Marrone, Mike Tomlin, Mike McCarthy, Dan Quinn of the Falcons, and Sean Payton of the Saints. Then the last couple that they give here on the site that I checked out, some interesting ones. Matt Nagy, Bears' new coach, plus 2,000. Vance Joseph, plus 2,000. And then Jason Garrett, Ron Rivera, coming at the end at plus 2,200. So my first thoughts on the odds that they give are that Vegas got all these odds wrong. The Coach of the Year award, it doesn't go to a Sean McVay. Bill Belichick has won it 3 times in his 19-year career, and yet he should be winning it every year. So that's not great odds at plus 1,300. He's not going to win it this year. So the Coach of the Year award goes to a team's coach like last year. Perfect example. Nobody thought the Rams were going to be anything, and yet they won 11 games. It's a coach whose team is projected to be bad, and then they win like 9 or 10 games. It's not necessarily a coach like Mike Zimmer last year, who his team won 13 games, but the Vikings were projected to be pretty good. So all these odds are really off, in my opinion. A couple of the ones that I'm really liking is Pat Shurmur at plus 1,400. Last year, of course, 3-13 year for the Giants. If they can win like 9 or 10 games this year, which I honestly don't think is out of the question, Pat Shurmur's going to walk away with it. Are there any others that you have your eye on this list?
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. You definitely nailed that on the head. I wouldn't do no Doug Peterson. No, they never give it to Belichick.
Nope.
Hardly ever. Not McVay. I think Shanahan's very interesting at 14-1. They were a 6-10 team last year. They could be potentially a 10 or 11 win team. He's very well liked and respected. People already think he's a good coach. That probably jumps out to me the most at 14-1. I think Nagy has a good shot as well. The Bears could be in for a bit of a turnaround this year. I don't know if they're a playoff team, but it's generally a coach who's new to his job as well, within the first or second year, as well as making the turnaround. So I think Nagy makes a ton of sense as well, too.
Yeah, a lot of them that just, don't make any sense. Like, McVay has already won it. They're not going to give it to him a second year in a row. Like, the writers and media guys who actually vote on this award, they, never give it to a coach like Andy Reid and Belichick, who've been in the league for years. And then they also never give it to a coach who's already won the award. So guys like Andy Reid, McVay, Bill Belichick, of course. Anybody else here that I see? I think Mike McCarthy's won it. All those guys are off the table. They really, unless they go 16-0, they're not winning this award again. So I love.
Right. It's more like the bounce back coach. It's more like the biggest net change in wins from one year to the next is who they give it to.
Very well put. Very well put.
What are the odds for Anthony Lynn of the Chargers?
Plus 1,300.
Yeah, that's another. I think they're a playoff team this year. They've got a really good team. They always seem to have a lot of injuries and kind of shoot themselves in the foot. They were like a 7-win team last year, so I don't. I'm not sure if they're a 10-win team, if that would qualify him, but
they actually.
I really like.
They actually were. Well. They snuck 9 wins last year and had that weird thing at the end of the year where they probably should have been in the playoffs, but the Bills, the way the NFL thing works.
Yeah.
So
maybe not him.
Lynn, I mean, if he goes 11 wins this year, they're probably not going to give it to him. One that I did not see listed on the odds, but of course if you go to MyBookie or whatever site you use, or your sports book, I love, he actually got, there was some chatter that he may deserve some votes last year just because of how terrible the team was projected. Todd Bowles is probably one who, if the Jets win, 8 games this year, and where basically everybody in the league last year thought they were going to win, no games or 1 game, and they won 5. He actually got some love for Coach of the Year last year because that team was just dog shit. and they won 5 games. So if they can bump it up to like 8 this year, that might be an interesting shot. I'm sure he's at like plus 3,200, something like that.
We could talk a bit more about Bowles in a minute. What are the odds for Frank Reich of the Colts?
That's an interesting one too. That one was not listed, but I assume it's probably going to be like plus 3,000, something like that.
That's an interesting one because he's new this year. Yeah, they had a pretty good draft this year, and obviously getting Andrew Luck back, they could really go from, what were they, a 3-win team last year? That could kind of vault them into a 9 or 10 win team.
Yeah, I could see like 8 wins. I kind of like that one, I guess. But the ones that I really have my eye on are Kyle Shanahan, 1,400, and then Shermer, 14-1 as well. Both of those really stick out to me as like, wow. Just again, Peterson, McVay coming in as the favorites. Like, they're not going to win it. Peterson already had his big coaching year last year. If they win 10 games this year, who cares? He's not going to win it. So those are the ones that really stick out to me. And yeah, I'm bummed we don't have the odds on Frank Reich or Todd Bowles, but I'm sure they're about plus 3,000, both of them. Any others here on this list? I like Matt Nagy too, plus 2,000. However, I am not very high on the Bears this year. I know there's been a ton of chatter that he's a really good coach. Trubisky looks awesome in the preseason. So that one is interesting, but I think for me, we've talked a little about the sleepers. My gun to my head, who wins this award this year, is Kyle Shanahan, plus 1,400. I think he's going to... Him and Jimmy G, they're probably going to win like 10 games this year is about where I see them. So going from 6 wins to 10 wins. And of course, before Jimmy G got there, they were at 1 win. So they were 1-9. That's my gun to my head bet. I think Kyle Shanahan walks away with this award. Who do you see actually winning, no odds or anything, winning this award this year?
Yeah, I would go with Shanahan as well. I think it's sort of a 2-year thing, but he would be given credit for the 2-year turnaround because he took over a 2-win team, and if he takes them to 10 wins, like I said, he's really well liked around the league. I think that, and there is some subjectivity to it. Guys they have people that they want to root for, people they want to give awards to, so I think that helps his case a lot. If they can do this season what they did at the end of last season, I think he's probably the strongest bet. Another thing to mention that I'll sometimes do as a prop bet, like if you really like Shermer and Shanahan, like I won't always just pick one. Sometimes I'll split it and actually put money down on 2 guys if I really like the lines.
Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely a great strategy as well. So, yeah, I would definitely put 100 on Shanahan and then 100 on Shermer. I really don't see any other coaches besides Shermer, Shanahan, Bowles, and maybe Matt Nagy. Like, those would be my 4 horses in the running. Like, if you put 100 on each of those, the worst you could come out with is still winning $1,100. So, if you put 100 down, I just like Shanahan. I just think it's so set up for him to have a great year. And, yeah, I think the 49ers are just going to be probably a playoff team this year, and he'll probably walk away with it if they do slide into the playoffs. Now, let's talk a little bit about Todd Bowles really quick at, like, plus 3,000-ish. Are you high on the Jets at all? Do you think that they could actually have a pretty good year? Because I'm actually thinking they could be a sneaky team in the AFC, considering they play the Bills and the Dolphins twice.
So this is going to tie into the next thing we're talking about, but I'll save that part. But I do actually like the Jets. I'm a big fan of their offensive coordinator, Jeremy Bates. He's from the Shanahan coaching tree. So I really like their offense. They surprised me. I thought they were going to be horrible last year, and they ended up a 5-win team. However, back in June, I did bet on Todd Bowles to be the first coach fired this year.
And now we're talking Coach of the Year award.
Yeah, so I'm not as sold on that bet that I placed anymore. I mean, it looks, obviously Dirk Cutter is a very strong favorite in that category. Yep. But Bowles has been there 3 years already. I think if they start off slow, there's a possibility he gets fired. But I'm definitely not as high on that bet now as when I placed it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you are looking at first coach fired, I think there's no question it's going to be Dirk Cutter. What do you know the odds on that? What is that?
He's 4-1. I mean, it's so obvious, and I usually look for longer shots. That's kind of why I went down to Bulls. But yeah, Dirk Cutter's he's atrocious.
But even like 4-1 odds on like a coach who I honestly, there's no way any coach is fired before him. I think that's just like an easy money bet.
Yeah.
And of course, Winston isn't starting the first 3 weeks. Like, what a great excuse for them to fire him.
Yeah, and I think they have an early buy. It might be week 5 or 6, something like that. I'm not 100% sure, but that could be the time that Cutter goes.
Without question. So I think we've pretty much locked it in. We love Shanahan, Shermer, and then if you're really, really feeling risky, Todd Bowles is probably about plus 3,000, plus 2,800, something like that. That could be an interesting one as well. All right, let's talk about some of the rookies this year, Joe. Coming into the year, we're going to do Offensive Rookie of the Year award. So let's jump right in. Looking at the odds. Coming in at the easy favorite, of course, Saquon Barkley, plus 140, which is just unbelievable against the field, plus 140. Oh, my God. That's ridiculous. Baker Mayfield next, plus 400. Josh Rosen and Lamar Jackson, plus 900. Josh Allen, 1,200, 12-1 odds there. Rashad Penny coming in next at 1,400, plus 1,400. Next we have Darnold, Geis, RIP to Geis' season, but would have been, and Calvin Ridley, all 16-1 odds. Sonny Michel also 16-1. Then Royce Freeman plus 1,800. Christian Kirk, Cortland Sutton at 33-1, as well as DJ Moore 33-1, and then Ronald Jones and James Washington 34-1. So my first thoughts on this, and I went back in prior years just to look at MVP award always goes to the best quarterback with the winning team and the best stats, and then the Defensive Player of the Year award always goes to basically who had the most sacks. So I was checking if I could see some trends of the Offensive Rookie of the Year award from years prior, and it's pretty wide open from position-wise. Last year, of course, Kamara, a running back, won it, then Prescott, QB, Gurley won it the year prior, then Odell, a wide receiver, snuck in there. Eddie Lacy, then RG3 won it the year prior, and then Cam Newton. So it really doesn't matter what position the player plays. It's just sort of who had the best season. So this award is actually pretty tough to predict because I don't know what Kamara's odds were to start the year, but it was probably 40-1 for him to win it last year. So any of these right off the bat jump out to you? Any discrepancies in the odds?
Yeah, I actually did huge discrepancy. So when did you pull those? Are those recent odds?
As of August 11th.
Oh, okay. I gotcha. Okay. So those are, okay. Because
they're a week old.
The Darnold... Okay, yeah. Okay. That makes sense. Is that from XBet or MyBookie?
That's from 5 Dimes.
Okay. Cool, yeah, because Darnold at 16-1 jumps out at me. That's actually... that's what I have the most money on this offseason because he was listed on a bunch of websites at 15-1, 10-1, and I started throwing money down on him because it looked like he was going to be the starter, and now the lines dropped to mostly 4-1 and 3-1 everywhere.
Yeah, because he is now, they're going to release that he is the starter, absolutely.
Exactly. I'm looking at him, so I've got him anywhere from in different various places, 10-1 to 15-1, and everywhere I just maxed out money on websites on most of those because I was looking at that and I'm like, dude, he's going to win this starting job, and that's just a total mispriced line because he should be the second favorite basically after Saquon because I don't think Baker's going to play all year, and I don't think and Josh Allen may start week 1, but I don't think he's very good.
Yeah, I agree.
So I was telling people, I was like, dude, get money on Darnold at 15-1. That was a really mispriced line. And then it definitely it definitely verified for me because then everywhere just dropped it to 3 to 4 to 1, you know?
Yep,
so I've got it
sure.
basically at 3-4 times value, I think, at, 10, 12, 15 to 1, when really it's a 3 or 4 to 1 line.
Absolutely. That's good for you for jumping on that line because, like I said, these are about a week old. But most of these, besides Darnold and maybe Allen, goes from like 1,200 to like 900 with Rosen and Lamar.
Yeah, I'm seeing Allen at 7 right now. Saquon at 9 to 4, Darnold at 4 to 1, or I think he's 3 to 1 on XBet in my bookie.
For sure. But hey, I mean, running back, such an easy position to get injured at if Barkley goes down week 3 or 4. Like, Darnold is the clear favorite to win that award, so I really like that bet that you made. Did you get it at 15 to 1?
I got it at 15 to 1 on XBet, and then I got it at 10 to 1 on Sportsbook and a bunch of money at 12 to 1 on Bovada. Bovada still has it at set plus 750.
Damn,
that's the best
I really
odds,
like
but everywhere
that.
else it's like 3 or 4 to 1.
Yeah, you can still hop on that on Bovada for sure, absolutely. 750, that's a great line there.
Yeah, so I think I'm really fading Mayfield, winning the starting job within the first month. Obviously, Barkley is the big hurdle. I did throw money down a while back on Rosen as well at around 10 to 1. So that's sort of a hedge. So either of those two guys. But Darnold is my number one bet this season. That's what I'm going to be rooting for all year.
I'm not really in tune with Cardinals camp. I haven't heard a lot. Is Bradford the week 1 starter there then?
I think Bradford's the week 1 starter. I mean, Rosen could jump him. It seems unlikely given as much money as they gave Bradford. But I'm not sure. All I know is it really seems Darnold's just getting all the number 1 reps for the Jets. So I really think he's the week 1 starter.
Without question. And again, we've talked on prior podcasts. The thing about rookie QBs is they make like $4 million, and for a quarterback, that's nothing. So you really got to get these guys in. That's every year now you're seeing them because they make such little money. You're really seeing them be the week 1 starters because let's see what this guy has. Like, let's throw him into the Wolves. If he's good, then we'll give him a contract in several years. I mean, if he flops, he flops. But there's no reason for Josh McCown or Teddy Bridgewater to be the starter in New York. Like, there's just no point. Like, Darnold makes like $4 million. Who cares? So that's a really good bet. And of course, Josh Allen too. AJ McCarron did get hurt, but Nathan Peterman was like the second on the depth chart. But I think Allen's going to start week 1, like you said. And again, he makes very little money for a quarterback. So a couple long shots on this. DJ Moore and James Washington, respectively wide receivers at 33 to 1. That's really high, and I think James Washington could be a very integral part of that Pittsburgh offense, sort of like we saw at Juju Smith-Schuster last year. And then DJ Moore, he hasn't looked great in preseason, but I still am really high on him, and he was the first receiver off the board. Do you like any long shot bets, any sleepers, or are we just throwing all our money on Darnold?
I mean, it's hard for me to go any other way besides Darnold. I'm looking at Sportsbook. If you really like James Washington, he's 75 to 1 there. That makes a lot of sense. I think it's just tough because so much of that offense is accounted for. It would be really hard for him to get 1,000 yards with Juju and Bell and Brown. It can happen. He looked incredible in the preseason game. That just might be a tough one.
I mean, again with these, there's a little bit of you're banking on injuries to some of these guys. Is always a part of it.
Yeah.
But that's a good point. DJ Moore, though, he really only has Funchess to compete with there for targets. Do you like DJ Moore at all? What are his odds currently?
I do. Yeah, I mean, I think he's the primary in Carolina. I'm seeing it at 41. That's a good odds. I think all the rookies, besides Saquon, the running backs have had huge setbacks, with injuries and, Nick Chubb's sort of, going to start as a backup. So I think probably after Darnold, my next bet would be DJ Moore.
After Geis went down, like, this was a terrible, terrible rookie class for position and skill guys. Like, of course, we had the 5 quarterbacks taken, huge quarterback draft, one of the biggest in history to have 5 in the first round. But other than Barkley, like, just the fact that Rashad Penny, who hasn't made a lot of noise in preseason, like, even he's the next after all the quarterbacks. And, like, there are just not many good position skill guys in this draft. Like, Sonny Michel will probably get a lot of work in New England. But this receiver class besides Ridley and Moore was terrible. And I don't know. I don't like a lot of the position guys, so I think it's either going to come down to Barkley and Darnold, and of course injuries play into that. But my gun to my head bet is the chalk. I think Barkley wins this award. He's just going to get so much work in Pat Shurmur's offense. He's going to be catching passes. He's going to be running the ball. He's going to be like Le'Veon Bell, basically. I think he's going like 5th or 6th in fantasy drafts right now. So that's my gun to my head bet. What would you say?
Yeah, gun to my head is still Barkley. Barkley is a very clear favorite. There just doesn't seem to be a lot of competition for him for any running backs. I don't see any of these receivers coming out with a 1,000-yard season in their rookie year. And the quarterbacks are iffy. They really have to play well. There's a longer adjustment period for quarterbacks than for running backs. So, yeah, it's clearly Saquon, but the best value, if you still get it, is Darnold.
And again, Lamar, Rosen, and Mayfield all are not starting week 1, so that, of course, hurts their value right there. But, yeah, I love the Darnold. If you got in at – and again, still on Bovada plus 750, that's great odds for Darnold. That is great odds. He's going to have a huge year for sure as the week 1 starter. But the Barkley at just, like, plus 140 is, like, almost even money against the field. That's, like, nuts that he is that much of a favorite in this competition. That's just ridiculous to me. Anyway.
You're basically betting against an injury. You're basically like, he's going to play all 16 games. Because we feel like he's going to produce.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like at least like Kamara or something like that. So it's you're basically banking on an injury to him if you're going elsewhere.
Exactly. And, of course, running backs, it seems like they're injured every week. So that might be a good bet. So you're liking Darnold at plus 750 on Bovada. Of course, coming into the year, it was plus 1,600 there. So let's jump into Defensive Rookie of the Year, other side of the ball there. So Defensive Rookie of the Year, looking at the odds, they have changed a little, like we said. These are coming into the year as of August 9th. But several sites, of course, they differ a little bit. But what we got so far is Bradley Chubb, plus 140. Roquan Smith, plus 400. Minkah Fitzpatrick and Denzel Ward both at plus 650. Tremaine Edmonds of the Bills at plus 800, as well as Derwin James. Marcus Davenport of the Saints, plus 1,000. Josh Jackson, 11-1. Jari Alexander and Harold Landry, both at 13-1. Then we got Leighton Von Escher of the Cowboys, 1,600 plus 1,600. And then the rest, we got Vita Vea, Tavion Bryan, 20-1. Deron Payne and Darius Leonard at 28-1. And then a long shot of Vikings rookie cornerback Mike Hughes at 40-1. So I'm just going to say it, I'm terrible at projecting defensive rookies. I'm pretty good at projecting how rookies on the offensive side of the ball will come into the NFL, but I really know nothing on that side of the ball when it comes to defensive rookies, so you're going to have to help me out with this one. I don't know where to go with this. Any of these lines jump out at you so far?
Nothing really jumps out at me. I would take, probably it's generally usually a pass rusher or a middle linebacker. If a pass rusher can get double-digit sacks, a middle linebacker can get 100 tackles, usually that's who it goes to. I'm not sure. And those are the only guys I see really doing that are the two favorites, Bradley Chubb and Roquan Smith. The guys right after him are, a lot of safeties.
Yep.
Tremaine Edmonds is a possibility. I wasn't a huge fan of his because his game's a little all over the place. So I think I would go either Roquan Smith at 5-1 or see if you can get just a bet on the field at like 20+1 because none of these guys really excite me.
I agree. I completely agree. Yeah, man. Like even I don't even like Roquan's like plus 400. I think if we're just gonna jump into it, Roquan Smith is my gun to my head. He's gonna win this award this year. I think he's just gonna get a ton of tackles. He's gonna be the week one starter. I think Von Miller takes away from Bradley Chubb's production a lot. But of course he's gonna get pressure and stuff like that. But in terms of sacks, I think Chubb may slip a little there. But Roquan Smith, for me, I just think he's going to get over 100 tackles, and I really loved him at Georgia. I'm really high on him. Derwin James at 8-1. Like, what do we think about that one?
I like him a lot as a player. I feel like there's not a strong history of safeties winning this award. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I just think they're going to use him in so many different ways. But again, he plays with Ingram and Bosa on that side of the ball, who get a lot of sacks, who are going to take away from his interception totals and pass deflections. So, yeah, last year's winner was, of course, Marshawn Lattimore. Of course, a cornerback won it last year, but he just had an insane season. I think he had 6 or 7 interceptions and was a Pro Bowler there, but yeah, I don't see any value really. I mean, like Leighton Von Escher at 16-1, like that's terrible odds. The
one guy that I like, probably the best value I'm looking at is Rashaan Evans of the Titans. He's a good player, and I'm seeing him right now at 22-1. That's probably the best long shot bet there is.
Yeah, I like that one. What are the current Vita Vea odds?
Vita Vea 25-1. But I mean, I guess he's a defensive tackle. I know Sue won it as a defensive tackle, but I don't really think anyone else has. I don't think Aaron Donald won it. Maybe J.J. Watt. I don't know, but that's a really tough position to make an impact at in the NFL in your first year.
Yeah, absolutely. So, of course, this is just such a hard award to predict. I will have no bets on any Defensive Rookie of the Year, but I do want to talk about it because it is one of the top 5 awards in the NFL, and there are a lot of bets on it. But who is your gun?
Yeah, I actually, like I say, I currently don't have any money down on this. I did email the sports book and see if I could get a line on Fred Warner of the 49ers. Probably going to be filling in for Reuben Foster in the first few weeks, and then possibly taking over at the other linebacker position after that. He's a a guy who gets a lot of tackles, a guy who had a nose for the ball at BYU. So I emailed them to see if they would give me a crazy 50-1 line on that, but they never responded.
Classic sportsbook. Like I said, my prediction for this award is Roquan Smith at 4-1. I think he does take home this award. I think he's just going to get a ton of tackles and really make an impact for the Bears defense. Who do you think actually takes home this award?
Yeah, gun to my head, Roquan Smith. He'll just, he flies around, makes a lot of plays. 100 tackles is sort of that benchmark for a rookie. That if they can hit that, that goes a long way towards winning Rookie of the Year, and I think he'll be in position to do that in the Bears defense.
Yeah, great minds think alike. So Roquan Smith at plus 400, 4-1. I do like that a lot, and again, injuries are just a part of football. If Chubb goes down week 6 or 7, it's going to be really hard for him to win the award. And yeah, a lot of these guys are safeties and D-backs, which they really hard to win this award. It's basically a pass rusher or just a linebacker who just gobbles up a bunch of tackles, and that's what you see at the top of the favorites, Roquan and Chubb at plus 140 and plus 400 there. All right, sticking on the defensive side of the ball, the MVP of Defensive Players, Defensive Player of the Year award is next. So coming in August 9th are these odds, but of course there should be a little bit of change here. But the favorite, of course, J.J. Watt, 5-1. And then coming in Joey Bosa, 11-2, as well as Aaron Donald, 11-2. Khalil Mack, 6-1. Von Miller, 9-1. Jalen Ramsey, 14-1. Then it gets pretty deep here. Luke Kuechly and Cameron Jordan of the Saints, 23-1. DeMarcus Lawrence 25-1, Chandler Jones, Calais Campbell, and Myles Garrett 30-1, Tyrann Mathieu 33-1, then Bobby Wagner, Landon Collins, Harrison Smith, and Earl Thomas at 40-1. Then Vikings cornerback Xavier Rhodes 50-1. So the thing about this award for me is that like there are several just like unbelievably stacked defenses in the league right now where like every player is like a Pro Bowler, and that's the Vikings, the Jaguars, Philly, and then the Rams as well. All four of those teams, just you look at their depth chart and it's just all Pro Bowlers, all pros, several former defensive player of the years. So like you look at a team like the Vikings who have like Xavier Rhodes and Harrison Smith on there. Those teams whose defenses just are so stacked, so many Pro Bowlers, guys on that side of the ball, it's just sort of considered like a unit. Like they all work well together, and that's why they're good. Like you look at J.J. Watt, who's won it 3 times. You basically, before Clowney got there, you basically couldn't name a single defensive player on the Texans besides Watt, and yet they were a top 5 defense. That's why he won it. So the thing about this award, it really goes to basically A, somebody who gets a lot of sacks, or B, someone who leads the league in tackles. So historically, those are just the numbers that you're looking at. So any of these lines jump out to you? I'm sure you have several other players on your sites that you're looking at. Any discrepancy in the odds that you think?
Yeah, I first just want to like echo what you said because that was very good. Like Richard Sherman complained a few years ago that basically defensive players cancel each other out. Like if you play on a good defense, no one gets the award. Like no one on Seattle was ever on that like incredible defense for 3 or 4 years was never a defensive player of the year. So that's totally right. So like I'm automatically looking at like I see 4 Vikings on my list. That kind of tells me that none of them are serious contender
exactly
for the award. Or yeah, Jaguars for sure I would throw in there. I think nothing really jumps out except I don't actually have a bet on this. If I was betting, I probably would just go Donald, Mack, and Miller. Actually, not even Mack. I feel like Mack's going to miss some time. According to what I read today, he might hold out into the season. So maybe just split money between Donald and Miller.
Has Miller won the award before? I feel like he has one.
No, he never has. Donald won it last year. And it's Mack won it and J.J. Watts won it a bunch of times.
Yeah, that's interesting. I feel like Von Miller's like peaked though. I think like he's already had his best season of his career, so it would take like a really big year from him. But I'm just looking at all the long shots. Again, like no Vikings, no Jaguars, no Eagles are gonna win this award. The defenses are just too stacked. Like Richard Sherman said, they cancel out. But I don't know, man. I really like Jalen Ramsey at 14-1. I just think of course, he had the big telling everybody that their favorite team's quarterback sucks, and I don't know, man. I just think he's gonna have a huge year this year, and I've been on the Ramsey hype train since he was drafted. I think he's a really good corner, and he's probably the best one in the NFL. So at 14-1, a cornerback has only won it 2 times since 1993. So that sucks, like, for, like, the historical who usually wins it. But if Ramsey has, like, a really, really awesome season, like 8 or 9 interceptions, locks down, I think he can win it. Do you like Ramsey at all? 14-1 is pretty good odds.
Yeah, that's decent because the award always goes to, like, a very, like, well-known guy. Like, you kind of need to be in the media spotlight already in order to earn the award in a weird way. It can't be, like, someone who's kind of a little off the radar who has a really good season. So I do like how kind of like in your face Jalen Ramsey is. I'm looking at this list. I don't see Reuben Foster listed anywhere. I kind of would be interested in that as a long shot. I like him as a player a lot. Obviously, my Niner bias is kind of shining through right now. It's just kind of a weird list. Like Yannick Ngakoue has had like double-digit sacks the last 2 years. He's not listed anywhere. A lot of guys missing from here.
No, I just completely agree with you. The one, like, again, it's just such if you play on a good defense, you're not going to win the award, and that's shitty. That sucks. Like basically, if you're on a team with a bunch of good defensive players, they all cancel each other out. But a defense who I think is going to be really good is the Saints defense. And Cam Jordan, if he gets like 14 sacks, 15 sacks at 24-1, I kind of like that. But other than that, all these guys just play on really good defenses and cancel each other out. So I like your strategy of going, who was it? It was Miller and Donald, just scrunching them together.
Yeah.
And again, it does. You made a great point. It does go to just a well-known player, a guy who has some clout, and it's not going to go to a random guy who's here like Chandler Jones. It's not going to go to Chandler Jones. Like barely anybody knows who that is.
Or like I like Danielle Hunter of the Vikings to have kind of a breakout season, but he's such a no-name that
exactly.
I don't think he would need 20 sacks to
exactly
to win the award.
Well, that's like a little bit what happened with DeMarcus Lawrence last year, who had I think 19 sacks, something like that. And I honestly, coming into the year, didn't know who that was, and he made a great impact. And yet he didn't even win the award, and he probably should have.
Yeah, you kind of need to have that first big season to establish yourself, and then the next season, you're eligible. Like a guy who's who I mentioned earlier, who's super under the radar is Yannick Ngakoue of the Jaguars. He had, I think, 10 sacks as a rookie, didn't get any Rookie of the Year votes. Showed because he was a third-round pick. Comes back the next year with, I believe, 12 and a half sacks, and, was a Pro Bowl alternate. He wasn't even voted to the Pro Bowl. You really need to establish yourself before you're eligible, before that people, take notice of you.
Absolutely. That's why these awards kind of suck, because media personnel vote on them, and, it's...
Exactly.
It's tough, but... Yeah, I like your strategy, but looking at this list, gun to my head choice for this award, it definitely would not be Watt. I'm totally selling my Watt stock because he gets injured all the time. He's always injured, and he's got back issues, and I really worry about his career. We've talked on latter podcasts about how if he gets one more major injury, I think he's calling it quits. He's contemplated retirement in the past. So I wouldn't say Watt at plus 500. Is it a Joey Bosa year this year? Is that what we're going with? I think it might be Bosa coming in at second at 11/2 odds. I think he's already established himself as a pretty good player. If he has 15 or 16 sacks, I could see Bosa winning it. So he's my gun to my head. He will win this award this year. Who do you think?
I think gun to my head, I'm going to go Aaron Donald.
Again,
he's the reigning defensive player of the year. And if it means anything, he's out to get that big contract. So Aaron Donald would be my gun to my head pick.
But see, I feel like having Sue next to him hurts him for this award. I think he's going to take away from the pressures, and I don't know. I just... the fact that he also won it last year, I think they try and mix up the awards every year and give it to new guys to get more hype around the league. So, yeah, I think for some reason I'm thinking Bosa. I just the stars sort of align in my head. The defense, the Chargers are going to be a top 10 defense. He's going to be leading them in sacks, and then there aren't that many besides Melvin Ingram. There isn't that many big name guys on the Chargers that side of the ball for them. So. I think Bosa's my pick this year.
What about a long shot? Any of these long shots jump out at you?
I honestly want to say Xavier Rhodes at 50-1 because I think behind Ramsey he's the second best. But again, he plays cornerback. Cornerbacks never win this award, and he plays on a team with Anthony Barr, Michael Kendricks, Hunter, Everson Griffin, Harrison Smith. There are too many big-name guys to take away from his spotlight. But I feel around the league, he's really respected at the cornerback position, and he's definitely a top 3 cornerback. But again, 50-1, it's good odds, I'm not going to lie, but cornerbacks never win this award.
Yeah, the problem with cornerbacks is really the only stat they're judged on is interceptions.
Which is nonsense.
And if you're really good, teams don't throw at you. Yep. So you can't really pile up interceptions.
Exactly. It's inversely related. Like the less teams throw at you, the better you are, but your stats suffer because of that.
Yeah, and stats are really important to winning awards. You can't just be like shut everybody down every week.
Yeah, exactly. Do you remember the Eagles cornerback Asamoah? He was like that. He only got like one pick every year, and it's because teams just like would not
Yeah,
throw at him, and he never won the award, of course. But
yeah.
yeah, any other long shots for you? I just don't see anything here. Maybe okay,
Yeah,
maybe Landon Collins at 40-1 for the Giants, but again, he's a safety, but he had a really good year several years ago, and he's already sort of established himself as a Pro Bowl player. Other than that, though, I like nothing on this list.
yeah. I think it's going to one of the top, 8 guys that are listed. I think Cam Jordan is a sharp bet. I really don't have any money down on this line though.
Neither do I. Neither do I, because this is just so tough. Again, it's going to go to a big name guy, but of course, the big name guys, there are not great odds there. So, yeah, this would be a no bet for me. But if, gun to my head, I would go Joey Bosa of the Chargers. So, our last bet, futures bet that we're going to be talking about is, of course, the MVP award. Of course, the MVP is slightly adjusted. I mean, it's basically who's the best quarterback in the league. There have only been 2 running backs who have won it this century. 3, I'm sorry, with Adrian Peterson, Sean Alexander, and LaDainian Tomlinson. All of them had historically unbelievable seasons, and like Peterson had to rush for 2,000 yards just to get it, and then of course Sean Alexander and Tomlinson had to get 30 touchdowns each, which will never be done again. So it's really who's the best quarterback and who puts up the best stats on a winning team. So let's take a look at these odds here. These are as of August 11th, so there might be a little change, but I think looking at them, I think these are pretty solid. So we have Aaron Rodgers 11-2 odds, Carson Wentz 7-1, Tom Brady 8-1, Drew Brees, Deshaun Watson, and Jimmy G 15-1, Russell Wilson, Cam Newton 20-1, Matt Ryan and Kirk Cousins at 22-1, Phillip Rivers, Ben Roethlisberger at 30-1, as well as Ezekiel Elliott and Todd Gurley 30-1. Jared Goff 33-1, Derek Carr 33-1, as well as Patrick Mahomes and Stafford and Andrew Luck. Dak Prescott 35-1, Lev Bell and Marcus Mariota 40-1, David Johnson, Antonio Brown 50-1, Jameis plus 6,000, as well as Case Keenum plus 6,000, Alex Smith 61-1 odds, Alvin Kamara 66-1. Then we got Trubisky, Fournette, Kareem Hunt 70-1 odds, Julio Jones 75-1, Eli Manning 85-1, Blake Bortles 10,000 plus 10,000 there, 100-1 odds. Shady McCoy plus 1250, and then yeah, basically guys like AJ Green, Dalvin Cook, Tyrod Taylor, Sam Bradford, all over 10,000 plus 10,000 here. So there are a lot of interesting names, and I think it's going to be a very interesting MVP year this year. So let's just start it off. Who do you, any names jump out, any discrepancies? Because I see quite a few in the odds.
Hit me with the discrepancies first. Who do you like?
Jared Goff at 33-1, I really like. I think that offense is just going to be extremely potent. He'll probably throw for 4,500 yards. So that's at 33-1. I've expected him to be sort of about 25-1, something like that. But 33-1, I love. Any others that I like? Again, we've just talked about how amazing you have to be as a running back. But Todd Gurley he came in second last year. I like, if the Cowboys are good this year, like a 10 or 11 win team, Zeke Elliott, if he can rush for like 1,800, 1,900 yards and be a big part of the passing game, him at 30-1, I kind of like. Those are the big ones that stick out to me. What do you think?
Yeah, this one is tough because it's so likely to be one of the top 4 guys that it's really hard to, go beyond that. You've got Rodgers, Brady, Breeze, and Wentz. It's like, oh, those are, likely it's one of those guys. I think my favorite line is I have Garoppolo. I actually did bet this one. I have Garoppolo at 20-1. I think he's in line. I mean, he's in such a good offense. He's going to have, probably close to 600 passing attempts this year. I think he's going to be in the 4,800-yard range. If the Niners have that big turnaround, again, they're a very popular team. He's a very, very popular guy in the media. I think he's got probably the best shot of the outsiders outside the top 4 guys.
You're really showing you're not hiding your 49ers fandom right now. But
I know I'm gonna go broke betting on the Niners. But it's all right. Sam Darnold will save me.
Yeah, Sam Darnold for sure, the savior. But right now he's 15-1. I don't like that at all.
What?
I don't like Jimmy G at 15-1. So let's see. Looking at all these, there are some. I feel like MVP as of recently has been sort of like last year. There were so many random guys who the top 5 MVP favorites were Carson Wentz before he got hurt, Tom Brady, Todd Gurley, a running back who had a terrible year the year prior. Case Keenum, out of all people, was about 4th or 5th on the voting charts. And then I believe it was either like Breeze or Goff was like the 5th in Ryan. But like who honestly out there besides Eagles fans made a bet on like Carson Wentz at 60-1 making an MVP run last year, because he was the clear favorite to win that award before he got hurt. So I think,
right, he would have won it.
Oh, he would have hands down won it, but of course missed 2 weeks. So there are some interesting ones here. One I also wanted to talk about, of course, he coming off not a huge injury, but he missed the whole year. David Johnson, 50-1. Like, he had one of the best fantasy football seasons of all time 2 years ago. He had just a ton of yards, ton of touchdowns. He was so efficient. Him at 50-1 is interesting, but the Cardinals probably aren't going to be good, so that, of course, affects it. Any other long shots that you're looking at here?
I'm looking over the long shots. Nothing that really jumps out at me. I'm not doing Jameis again this year.
No, absolutely not. That was actually, coming into last year, that wasn't a terrible bet because they were expected to win like 9 or 10 games, and if he had thrown...
Yeah, I saw some good things from him, but there's so much bad that goes with it.
Yep, exactly. So, I mean, you're right. Again, it's going to be so hard if you're going against the field of Wentz, Rodgers, and Brady. Like, that's still really fucking tough, man. But
yeah, that's a tough line. I wouldn't go too much beyond that. I mean, Kirk Cousins at 20-1 is a little interesting. I think the Vikings are a very good team this year. Yeah, that's it for me.
Yeah, even that, like 21, I don't know. Man, they gave Patrick Mahomes a lot of respect at 33-1. That's way too. Right. That's way too high. That's way too high.
Yeah, I'm seeing him at 65-1. So.
Oh, okay.
Good line on Sportsbook.
Gotcha.
I think that seems more in line.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I feel like Wentz already, like, he deserved it last year, of course. I feel like he's gonna A, regress from last year. B, might miss a few games. I don't like him to win it this year. I think, like, his time already sort of came and he sort of blew it because they sort of like to give it to a guy that is sort of making a break. So that's why I think Jared Goff at 33-1 is really interesting, because I think he, again, had a really good year last year, but I think if he really bumps it to that next level in that offense with a great defense, I think the Rams are going to win like 12, 13 games this year. So I really like that at 33-1 is pretty solid. That's the only real long shot that I would do, I think. But there are some interesting ones. I mean, again, when we look back at these in a year, it's going to be like, wow, Devonta Freeman, how did we miss him at 10,000-1? Like, again, Case Keenum was probably 400-1 to win it before last year, and he was a top 5 favorite, so you never really know. But my gun to my head bet on this is we haven't really talked about him just because he's the favorite, but I feel like it's an Aaron Rodgers year this year. I think the stars align. The Packers are going to be good. He's coming off an injury where he's pissed. Again, it happened against a division rival Vikings team. So I think if he throws for like 4,800 and they win like 12 games, I think that's probably. I mean, Vegas thinks so too. And I hate to give my gun to my head bet to be something so chalky like it being the favorite, but I honestly just see Aaron Rodgers taking it this year. What do you think?
Yeah, gun to my head, I wouldn't go against Rodgers or Brady, and I think Rodgers is just really the clear favorite here.
Before we wrap up the pod, I'm just got the odds in front of me, and I Deshaun Watson at 15-1. Does that interest you at all? I think Deshaun Watson, just the year that he had, and coming back off an injury, he's very well liked in the media. Everybody was rooting for him last year. 15-1 if the Texans win like 10 games, he throws for 4,500, 30 touchdowns. And any love there?
I like Deshaun Watson a ton as a player. I loved him coming out. He's an awesome dude. I think I'd rather take Jimmy at the higher odds.
Oh, come on, really?
Or Kurt. Yeah.
I just think the award is basically like, of course, it goes to the best quarterback, but it's basically like 60% your stats and like 40% how your team did. Because you look at years prior, Matt Ryan, Cam Newton, Tom Brady, Wentz, all those guys, their teams are really good. So if like Andrew Luck is like not in the running, Derek Carr, guys like that are not in the running. Jameis Winston, of course, is not in the running. Like guys, even if they put up really good stats, Kirk Cousins last year had a 5,000-yard season. Even he was never in the running because his team sucks. So Deshaun Watson, if they're the breakout team this year, I could definitely see him winning it.
That's an interesting bet. I can get behind that.
And yeah, like I said, I mean, these are just so tough, especially when you get into like the 60-1, 70-1. But again, last year, Carson Wentz, if anybody other made that bet and saw him get injured in the Rams game, like, your heart must have sank, man. That's just a terrible, terrible way to lose it, because he of course, was a great pick last year, but I have a feeling it's a Rodgers year this year. He's got two or three already, and I don't know. I just feel like the Packers are going to have a really good year this year, and if they do, and he just turns so many no-name receivers and running backs into household names like Randall Cobb and Devontae Adams. So I think he's going to have a great year, and I think he's going to win it this year. Well, that wraps up our NFL Awards Futures podcast. Thank you so much to Joe Marsh for coming on, sharing his expertise. We're definitely going to have you on the pod for sure. Sometime this week, of course, we'll have a podcast every week breaking down every single game of the NFL season. So we'll definitely have you on again. So thanks so much for coming on, man.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.